so we are getting ready to attach our band to our bezeled Rivoli. Now it's going to be very similar regardless if you're using the 14 millimeter or the 12 millimeter. And the reason why that is that the 14 millimeter we put on 34 Delicas for that first round, so that when we went to put on the second round, there was 17 Delicas put on. The 12 millimeter we put on 30 for that first round, so then on the second round it's 15. So what happens is, instead of being like, let me just get this over to the side here and let me show you. So on this side, yeah, so on this side what I had to do is I attached it to the center spine, but to have it all the way equal to the other half, I had to attach it to the bottom of the pear. And you know, it's just the way the math was. If for some reason we had an even number for that second round of peyote, it would be a different story. But this way it lies centered. So keep that in mind, and that's the reason why it is what it is. All right, so let's go ahead, and we are going to need our 11 rounds. Our 11 rounds are 3 millimeter fire polish, or if you're using bicones, and put the needle on your tail of your band and meet me back here. So a few things to keep in mind is when we're doing the band, you want your bands to be equal to the other side. So when we attach these, you want to just be mindful of what we're doing. So for example, I'm going to be attaching like this. So I'll be starting with a kind of a gold Tila bead at the very front. So when I go ahead and attach this, I want to make sure that it's like that. So just keep that in mind on how you want to have your band look when it's attached to your bezel. Now the next thing you want to do is be mindful of where your thread's coming out of. So you want your thread to be coming out of the right angle weave. And when you first put it in, we're going to start off on this side with the center spine. Let me see if I can get a little closer of one of the delicas of where you want to come out. And when you're doing it, you want to think about this. Your thread is coming out this direction here, going towards the Tila. So you are going to be putting your needle away from the Tila bead. There we go. Just get all the other threads out of the way here. Oops, let me just move this band. Sorry for technical difficulties. Alright, so we just want to go like this. There we go. And then we are just going to reinforce that a few times. So I'll just go ahead and put my needle through again. Oops. There we go. Let me just back up a little bit. I keep bumping the camera. Talk about being difficult to doing this with the camera. I didn't realize how difficult with the camera it would be. There we go. And then go ahead And we're coming through this bead here. Bring that closer. You want to do that like 2 or 3 times. Well, probably, I would say 3 or 4 times actually. Just because this is going to be a stress point. This is the connection. You want to just protect that connection. So. And I'm just going to do it one more time because it is a stress point. There we go. Now what you're going to do is we want to move to the other side. There we go. So we're going to pick up 2 11-0 round seed beads. We're going to pick up our 3mm fire polish. Then we're going to pick up 2 more 11-0 seed beads. There we go. Go through into the beginning of the other right angle weave unit. There we go. Now we just want to lie that flat. And here's the top of that right angle weave unit. We want to go into, there we go. I would say what we're going to do is we're going to go through this spine here. And let's count here. So after we got our first connection on, we are going to count. Let me just show you all here so you can see. We're going to count. We're right over here, so we're going to count 1, 2, 3. And we're going to be mindful of how we put that connection in. So since we're going away from the Tila, we want to, when we put in that our needle in, we want to go towards the Tila. So just think of which way you're currently going, and you just want to go the opposite direction. Otherwise you'll get your connection twisted. And just like this connection, you want to reinforce 3 to 4 times. See? And I just have it turned backwards just because it's a little easier to see at the moment. And just make sure your thread doesn't catch on anything. So go nice and slow. There we go. All right, and then we're going to reinforce this. So I'm just going to follow the thread path for that. And since I don't want things to go wonky, I'm going to have to go through that Tila unit to make it to the other side. And there we go. You don't want to skip any beads, so check both sides. Make sure you're not skipping any beads. Now I don't have a whole lot of thread here, so what I'm going to do is before I put on the other side, I'm going to go ahead and go through here a few times, do like 2 or 3 knots, preferably in the Tila, and burn off my thread. So I'll meet you back here and we'll do the other side. So on this side, our centered bead section, let me just pull that up a little bit. So our center section is the 2 beads together, but we put our connections on a center spine. So we had 1 we skipped, and then our center spine. 1 we skipped, and then our connection. And then the center for us on this, you can use your needle. It's going to be the opposite. So if we come over here, it's going to mark our center. So here's our center, and we'll be doing the pairs. So we'll skip and then put our band, our first connection right here, and then on the other side we'll skip and then put our connection right here. So let's go ahead and do that. So meet me back here. Thread the tail on the other band. You should have the same color starting if you want. Just be conscientious of that. So for me, it'll be gold. And I'll meet you back here and we'll connect our band on the other side. So you want to make sure your thread is coming out here at the very top of that right angle weave. Just being mindful that in this particular case for me, I'm pointing outward. So when I make that first connection, I'm going to have my needle pointing in towards the Tila bead. Alright, so we have our center. I'm going to go ahead and move that needle. I'm skipping this one and I'm going here and I'm going to put it on the bottom. It just, for me, I think it looks a little bit better than putting it on the top connection. There we go. It's just maybe preference. So we'll go ahead, just like we did before, we'll slide this in and we'll just keep doing what we did before. Go through that again. Pulling that together and reinforcing that 3 to 4 times. So we'll go ahead, reinforce. Alright, so I am going to, since I'm pointing outwards, I can't just simply go straight across like we did the other side. It just depends on the circumstances. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work my way down till I get to the other side, and I'm going to follow my natural thread path. I'm not going to create a new thread path. I'm just going to go through the Tila unit. Now when I get to the other side, I'll be naturally pointing inwards. Just the way things are sometimes. There we go. Make sure you didn't skip any beads. Good way to do this, check both sides or go one at a time. I'm following my natural thread path, not creating a new one, and I'm right here. Now I'm pointing towards the Tila bead my connection on this side. Let's see here. So we'll have 1, 2, 3. And since I'm pointing inwards, I'm going to be pointing outwards. There we go. And then go ahead and reinforce that 3 to 4 times. There we go. There we go. You don't want it overly tight too. You don't want it loosey-goosey, but you don't want it overly tight. Because you want it to be able, it is going to be a band, and so therefore you want it to be able to move it. There we go. And then go ahead and pick up 2 11-0s, a 3mm fire polish or bicone, 2 more 11-0s. There we go. So we have that picked up. And just go through where we have our connection at the right angle weave section, the top. And you want to make your way down again and reinforcing that. There we go. And then my thread here is fairly short, so I'm going to go ahead, after I reinforce this, end my thread. I'm just going to go through here one more time, end my thread, and then I'll meet you back here and we'll start working on the embellishment. Okay, so now that we've got our band on connected to our Rivoli, our bezel Rivoli, we are ready to go ahead and start the embellishment. Before we do, you may want to just check the size of your bracelet. See if it's as long as you want. Keep in mind we are going to be adding on a clasp. And for those of you take in consideration whether or not you're going to be adding a jump ring and or split ring, and you want to give just a little space because at the very end of the bracelet we'll be adding on this little bit here. So that's about I would say approximately 1/4 of an inch. So depending on the size of your clasp and or jump ring or split ring, you want to take that in consideration when you're measuring your bracelet. And if you need to add on any Tilas, you can go ahead and do so at the end. And then we can always remeasure once we have most of the embellishment on. We can take a look at it and see if we need to add on as well. But now's a good time to go ahead and do that. This bracelet does lay fairly flat, so go ahead, do that, and then meet us back here and we'll get started on the embellishment. Alright, so for the embellishment, first what we want to do is we're going to be putting our embellishment between the 2 Tila beads. And right now I am coming out of this seed bead, so I'm going to follow the natural thread path and get to in between this Tila and this Delica. So I'm coming in between. picking up one 11-0 round, one fire polish, and then one 11-0 round. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through this Delica and then the top seed bead there. Alright, so now what I want to do is, because we're going to create a little X, I want to get my thread between this Delica and this Tila again. So I'm going to follow the thread path. There we go. I'm going to pick up one 11-0, go through the fire polish, pick up another 11-0, and then I'm going to go, so we're creating an X, I'm going to go in between this Tila bead and this Delica. There we go. And then I'm going to go ahead and reinforce that by following the thread path. Just by making that X again. And we're going to go ahead. Now I'm coming through this Tila bead and I'm just going to go underneath, catch all of the beads, and we'll just reinforce this Tila bead while we're at it. There we go. And then we're going to go through this Tila bead and go through the 11-0, the Tila bead, and the Delica and the 11-0. So we're doing two things. We're doing our first embellishment and we're reinforcing our Tila beads. The reason why we didn't do that right away is we didn't want to get so much thread prior to doing our embellishment. So we're going to keep going. I'm running out of thread here, so I'll be adding on soon enough. So again, now I'm going to do my next embellishment. It's going to be between this Tila bead and this Tila bead. Alright, so let's do a couple more embellishments and then I will leave you on your own to finish up the embellishment on this side and on this side. So let's go ahead. Let's see here. There we go. Alright. So I'm coming out of this bead here. My next embellishment will be going in between two of these Tila. So I'm going to go ahead and maneuver. So it'll be going between this Delica and this Tila. Picking up a Levino, a fire polish, and a Levino. Going through the Delica and the sea bead on the other side, because it'll be the first leg of my X. There we go. And now I want to move over to here, so I'm going to follow the thread path. And it's important that you don't create a new thread path while doing this. There we go. So now my needle's coming through between the Delica and the Tila. I'm going to pick up a Levino, go through the fire polish, there we go, pick up another Levino, and then go through in between the Delica in front of this Tila bead and Levino. We're going to go ahead, reinforce that embellishment, and then we'll reinforce the Tila beads. So I'm going to follow the thread path that I created for this embellishment. Doing a couple of beads at a time will prevent you from missing a bead. Now that, let's see here, did I? Nope, now we gotta reinforce the other side. Oops. Alright, now I'm just going to reinforce my strength between the two Tila beads and then move forward. So instead of going through the embellishment, I'm going to go through the Tila bead, and I want to make sure that I don't skip the Tila bead. Here we go. And check both sides. Make sure you're not missing any of the beads that you need to. We're just reinforcing this Tila bead connection. And then I'll do the other, and then we'll move forward to where our next embellishment is supposed to be. And again, you don't want to do things too tight. And that's the thing that I've got to make sure that I myself don't do. There we go. Okay, 1, 2. think I went back further than I needed to. That's okay. Doesn't hurt to have a little extra reinforcement. Again, I'm just going to check the back, make sure I didn't miss any beads. Nope. And then go ahead and go through. It doesn't hurt. I mean, it's better to be safe than sorry. And there we go. And then I'll get in place for my next embellishment. There we go. Alright, so now I'm ready for my next embellishment, which will be between these two Tila beads. So I'm going to let you do this, finish up on your own. Now remember, you're going to go to all the way to here for your embellishment. So between the last two Tila beads that you have on your bracelet is where your last embellishment should be on both sides. So your last one on this one would be between these two Tila beads, depending on how long you have your length of your band. So once you've done both sides, come back. We will then be adding our clasp and jump rings or split rings, and from there we'll be putting on the final piece of embellishment. So meet me back here once you have all that done, and we'll do that. All right, so make sure your thread, before we add our clasp and our beads for that, is coming out of the top of one of these two right angle weaves, okay? And the thread is facing towards the Tila. So if my thread was on this side, it would be facing this direction. All right, so after that, pick up 6 11/0 round seed beads, then put on your clasp, and I already have my jump ring my split ring already attached. If you're using a jump ring, go ahead and attach your jump ring. Now this particular clasp, I didn't need to do that. And that's because I got a closed circle. The reason why I like to do that, and this is something you may want to keep in mind, is when it comes to making bracelets and necklaces, if you make your bracelet or necklace too long, it is so much harder, and sometimes you just have to start all the way completely over by making it all over again. If it's slightly too short, it is easier to lengthen the necklace or the bracelet. And it's even more easier if you have your clasp attached to a jump ring or a split ring. Just something to keep in mind. It depends on who you're making it for. It's about preference, those sort of things. But I do like to make gifts, so just some things to keep in mind. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna thread through the split ring. Then I'm gonna go through the opposite right angle weave. I'm gonna follow my current thread path and go through that last Tila unit. Make sure you go through all the beads, you're not missing anything. There we go. Now we're going to go ahead and reinforce. So we're still going through the right angle weave that was there previously. It gets a little harder because of the magnet. All right, so I'm sticking out of the right angle weave that was there previously. First, I'm going to pick up a 11-0 Delica, go through 3 of the 11-0 round seed beads that I just added. Keeping my clasp to the other side. There we go. I'm going to add one more 11-0 Delica. Go through 3 of the 11-0s that I added. Make sure my clasp did not get caught in the thread anywhere. Before I enter in the other side of the right angle unit, I'm going to pick up one more 11-0 Delica. Follow my thread path for the right angle weave. So that Delica is actually going to sit right before the right angle weave. And then I'm going to go through and just reinforce all those beads again by following the thread path. And when you do so, just be mindful of going through all the beads. There we go. And I would do that a total of, let's see here, 2 to 3 more times at least. Just because this is going to be considered a stress point. And when I'm going through the right angle weave, I still follow those rules about going one bead at a time. So I want to try to keep as much of the shape as possible. And this will be the last time I go through here. And since my thread here is starting to get short, I am going to go ahead and do a knot. And I'll do the knot right before I go into that Delica. Just because it's a little bit bigger hole. And when I did that, I made sure that I didn't grab the thread that was there on our first round. I made sure that was not part of my knot. And the reason why I like doing this, it creates a little bit of a shape and it just gives it a little bit more oomph, especially with having both the 11-0 rounds and the 11-0 Delicas. It adds texture to your piece, and it brings it more to life, is my personal thought process behind that. And my thread is getting super short here. All right. And I want to keep the integrity of that right angle weave, so I'm going to go through the seed beads one at a time, even though, there we go. Go through that Tila one more time. And then I'm just going to burn off the thread. All right. I'll meet you back here. I'm going to add some thread. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. I'm going to add some thread and we're going to put on the last bit of the embellishment. And by the way, you do the same thing on the opposite side. All right, so I've added thread, so we're back. And now we're going to put on the finishing touches on the embellishment, the last bit. So my thread is currently coming out right here from the right angle weave. And there we go. And here's part of the next right angle weave, and all we're going to do is we're going to take some 11 Delicas, pick up one 11 Delica, thread through the next one. So the part of the right angle weave that's sticking out on the side, we're just going to be adding 11 Delicas. And that will just give it some more shape and texture because of the difference in colors and shapes. So go all the way down, and I'll show you how to cross over, and we'll do all the way up, and then you just have to go through and reinforce and then do your knots and finish up. So we're almost done, you guys. All right, I'm putting on my last 11 Delica on this side of the band. Then I'm just gonna go through and reinforce this part of the band that we put on earlier. There we go. All right, so you thread your needle until you go to, and you're through that first right angle weave where the side is sticking out. So now I have my thread through there, and I got the next sticking out from the right angle weave, and I'm just going to go ahead and bead through there, and then go all the way up, and you're done with this side, and then you do the exact same thing on the other side. So, quick thing to mention is make sure you go around at least a second time for reinforcement. You don't have to. This embellishment isn't going to get a lot of stress on it, but it doesn't hurt, and as long as you're able to move through